Welcome to Journey to Joy podcast today. And I have with me Patricia Mattie MacGregor, who goes by Mattie. And I want to tell you where I met Mattie and how this even came to be. So this is so fun. So I was on a trip to go see my children. I was moving myself to Hawaii, and I happened to, not by accident, walk into a grocery store. And as I was checking out of the grocery store, Mattie was checking me out. And I happened to, I don't know, Mattie, I don't remember how it even came up, but I started talking about where I was from. I know what I was doing. I was putting my phone number in and my address in for the rewards. And we were talking
Yes.
about, we were talking about Hawaii. And then she happened to say, well, I lived on Maui for a year. And then proceeds to tell me how she didn't travel to Europe as well. And what struck me and why I wanted to have you on the podcast is you said something very important, which is in your travels, in your experience that you've had, that it's so important for every woman, and I would say even every person, every man, to experience what it's like to be independent, to travel independently, and to really get to know yourself
Mm-hmm.
through that experience. And that's something that you got to experience as well
Mm-hmm.
on your journey to joy. So, so I'm going to kind of bounce over to you here and have
Okay.
you tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So my name is Mattie MacGregor. I legally do go by Patricia Mattie MacGregor. I was born in Twin Falls, Idaho, where both of my parents traveled extensively. So I lived out of a suitcase most of my childhood, which then led to I went to college and then took off on an adventure of one-way tickets, which was the first stop was Maui. And I lived with a 74-year-old woman there who was an artist, and I worked at her Airbnb, and she taught me so many beautiful things that kind of shaped me into who I knew I was. She was one of those people that cultivated a space for me to be able to be who I was without the imposing thoughts of other people who had maybe known me my whole life. It gave me enough space to actually exist. And she was one that pushed me to go be an au pair and to continue traveling. And she really didn't want me to come back to Idaho. She was like, just go, like, you can do it. And so I then went from Hawaii to Big Sur, where I stayed on her family's self-sustaining farm. And I learned about vineyards and wine and Arabian horses and milking goats, and they had purple sand beaches, and it was a privately owned mountain basically of just their family. So I spent a few months there, learned
Big
about
Sur, is that,
beehives.
where is
California.
California?
California.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. Yes. So I came home from Hawaii, flew home on Valentine's Day, left the beautiful sunshine to fly into Boise, and it was freezing cold. And I did have a slight moment of being like, oh my goodness, what did I just do? But I left the island because I missed the wind here in Idaho. It's a crazy reason to come home, but
Yeah, usually we run
that's
from the wind.
yeah, I missed being held by it. I missed the presence of it. And so I came home, and then I went on a road trip down the 101 with a friend. I had him leave me in Santa Cruz, which is then how I got to Big Sur. My mom drove my car out and then flew home, and I spent a summer in California with my turtle. I had a Canadian wood tortoise that traveled the country with me. I went to San Francisco. It was a really beautiful time in my life where I just got to explore. I was in my early 20s. I turned 21 in Maui, and then that kick-started my almost 5-year run of just traveling the world. And I yeah, it all stemmed off of one-way tickets. So I would buy a ticket to my destination. I did learn the hard way going into Ireland, which luckily I had a plane ticket to Spain, that if you have a one-way, they basically don't let you in their country unless you have another ticket leaving their country. So I had a moment where I was pulled aside into, their special little room, and they were like, "How long are you here?" Luckily, it was only 11 days, and then I was off to Spain. But that is a good tip for anyone. You can't get there on a one way. You have to
Can't one way
show
yourself.
you have to show that you're moving along.
How did you decide before you go on? How did you
Hmm.
decide where you were going to go next? Like, how far ahead did you plan, or was there not really planning?
I didn't plan at all. I
So,
basically just listened to where my heart was saying, and the I had a theory the whole time I was traveling, called like I followed the blue-eyed people.
okay.
And it started just being like something random, and then as my journey continued, it was like, the busker in the street that was playing bongos that would let me crash on their couch, or because basically I backpacked my way through Europe. I did have the au pair job in southern Spain that was only for the summer. And then everything else, I had a friend in France. I didn't know anyone in Ireland. And I was so naive and young that I forgot to tell my credit card and my bank that I was leaving the country. And so they froze my accounts. So for almost a week in Ireland, I had no money. And yeah, out of the kindness of people's hearts and just like the pure adventure of it, I somehow figured it out. And I met these five guys from Austria who were firefighters who were doing a group boys trip, who we bus took a bus across Ireland to the Cliffs of Moher, and they taught me a lot about like three in, three out. If we all go in together, we all leave together. And really formative years of my life of just like trusting that I was more capable than I had been told I was. And just literally listening to that intuition and following the music. I knew that I would always be safe if there was music. So that's how I mean, I never had a place to sleep when I landed. I left it up to magic. Whatever was waiting for me was, if I was listening, I would find it. And
That
so
is,
I did that for years. Yeah, it
yeah.
was
And that was
really beautiful.
years. I mean, I only did that
Yeah,
for a month, and it was so magical to even tap in to
yeah.
that ability that we have within ourselves that we
Mm-hmm.
don't know we have. And
Right.
we're so busy, seeking outside opinions. We're too busy
Mm-hmm.
planning to avoid bad things from happening, so that we're really not open and looking for all these amazing magical things that are actually in front of us, because
Right.
we're too busy trying to avoid pitfalls that may or may not even exist, right? We're not open to
Right.
receive this greatness.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you got to do this at such a young age. I mean, I'm
Mm-hmm.
45, so you started
Yeah.
at 21.
Yeah.
The fact that you got to do this at such a young age and really have it develop you and develop that self-trust with you
Mm-hmm.
is so important. Um,
Yeah.
wow. So, I mean, there's just so much there. And you have a book that you've written.
Yes.
You wrote that along the way.
Yeah. So every country or state I went to, I had a journal, and it started in California mostly, is where instead of just writing my experience, I started asking random strangers questions like, if today was your last day on earth, what would you do? Or if you weren't afraid of anything, what would you go do right now? And so each journal had a theme. Like Spain was, what is your greatest love story? And I have an entire like leather bound journal from New York City all the way to Spain of people's, their greatest love story was their greatest heartbreak. And I have 18 pages of one person's story, and there's hundreds of stories. And that was my initial thought on my book, was the collection to put into like a coffee table style book of pictures of their stories, and then it typed out. But because of legal side of things, I haven't figured out how. They all knew that that was my intention, and I got their emails and their phone numbers. But so I have quite a few different avenues with my writing that I've collected. And so, yes, to answer the question, every place I went, I wrote what my day was, like from the time I woke up until I went to bed. And so now looking back, I have an entire record of my experience. And this one that I just put together is a collection of poetry. It's 187 pages of just random bits and pieces I've taken from journals. And so there's heartbreak, there's my life story, there's traveling solo, there's working at the greenhouse, the local greenhouse here that I worked at for 5 years with the flowers and growing plants. And so that one is kind of a collection of me over the past few years. The cover is a picture I had taken in Bali when I went to a retreat, and just like very vulnerable moments in my life, which has also led it to be a bit, I don't want to use the word terrifying, but I'm bearing my soul.
Yeah, it's
And
vulnerable. Yeah.
yes, yeah, and extremely raw, but I know that there's substance in it. And if I can just be brave for 20 seconds, I know good things will come. And yes, I've been writing since I was 10 years old, so it's
Okay.
definitely something that has always been inside of me. And now I'm just finding the tools and the people to help curate it into becoming something.
How much of your, I love that. How much of your experience in travel do you feel like has really helped develop that in you and develop that? We all have a mission, right? I think we all have a calling, not just a mission, but we have a calling inside of us. And
Yeah.
as we experience life, I feel like the experiences that we have, that's what develops our real calling. Or we take
Mhm.
what we've done and that's what leads us to that calling as well. And it
Yeah.
seems like, you started with the skill that you had of writing, but then it became even more developed through the experiences that you had.
Hmm.
And I love when you're talking about it is vulnerable. It is scary. It is scary for someone who's never done this before or shared their experiences before. It is scary. But I
Hmm.
think that the beauty and the missed opportunity is if we don't share, everyone out there has experiences that they hide because
Hmm.
they are afraid to talk about them. And for those of us that are willing and called to be vulnerable and share the experiences that we've had,
Hmm.
is going to give permission to witness other people's experiences that they've had that they've maybe never told anybody about, or they maybe haven't recognized within themselves.
Right. Well, and
Just,
I started dabbling with sending some of my more vulnerable pieces onto my Instagram account.
mhm.
And some of the ones that I was the most like, oh my gosh, I had, this tension in myself about were the ones that people responded to the most. And they were like, me too, and thank you. And it's like you said, I think that what I learned was that stepping into who I knew I could be was amplified by the travel and the experiences of, like booking a one-way flight and you land in London, not realizing that you fly out of a different airport in 45 minutes because I did it when I was half asleep and I have 45 minutes to find a train and get to the right airport. It's just like those type of interactions. I feel very fortunate in the United States because we're very I don't want to say coddled, but in a lot of ways we kind of there's a
Yes.
safety blanket around us that the rest of the world doesn't have. um and being exposed to that, knowing that I'm capable, regardless of, like some things I probably shouldn't have made it out of, and I did. And I just fully believe that I've got like 10,000 angels behind me. And as long as I stay in my truth, that nothing can touch me. And it's not like the naive, invincibleness, but it's just a matter of knowing my own autonomy. And I got really good. I'm not sure if you experienced it in your month in Italy, but just really good at reading the room and paying attention to people and just knowing when to move in the correct times. That was something that I really cultivated.
Yeah, I think because you were gone for so long and to so many different places,
Hmm.
I think I still had some naiveness about me.
Hmm.
I as I think about it now, I'm like, I should have been scared. I should have been worried about what was
Yeah.
happening. I mean, there was one point where I took a train where I thought I was going to the right spot and I thought I could get like I thought it was a good idea and I thought I could get a cab and there's zero cabs and it was this ghetto town and it was not great.
Yeah.
And the Airbnb guy came and he's like, I'll come pick you up. And so, I mean,
Hmm.
huge blessing. He texted, of course, then you have this random stranger who comes to pick you up. Like they could have like cut me up and head me in a mountain and nobody would know.
Yeah, exactly.
However, when you have that awareness and that
Hmm.
inner knowing, Jamie Kern-Lena talks about it as a knowing, right? Your inner knowing.
Hmm.
I talk about it as it's trusting the way that you feel and the
Hmm.
energy that surround you. And if
Yep.
it's not the right energy, then you know very quickly that it's not the right
Hmm.
energy. I had a guy when I got to Hawaii here who came to put in one of my AC units. And I am telling you, I was like, I was going to hire him to do some other work here. And he was off. And I
Hmm.
could not wait for him to get out of my house. And I was like,
Hmm.
yeah, he is not okay. Well, he left and it was the next week. He jacked up my bill. He was dishonest. And then when I called him on it, he was mean and he tried to be like I was the single woman he could take advantage of. And I was like, I'm sorry. I don't play with people like that, right? But it's so interesting that the way he behaved was really congruent with when he showed up at my house and I felt his energy.
Hmm.
And I was never an energy woo woo person. I would call it like a woo woo thing. And I'm like, no, it's
Hmm.
really true. Like we have like an energetic signature. And
Yep.
if we are in not a healthy, happy space, that really radiates out from us.
Hmm.
And when you're in tune with that, then I think that is a guiding light as well that helps you to know, am I in the right space or am I not in the right space? And do I need to move or is this the right decision? And if it's
Right.
not a heck yes, then it's a no, right?
Hmm.
And it doesn't have to be confusing.
Right. Right.
But when we're not tapped into us and trusting us, it's confusing. And I think there's so many confused people out there because
Hmm.
they're looking for information from third parties. They want somebody else to tell them what direction to go. We've really lost touch with, following gurus and other people, or even just reading books and like trying to look outside of ourselves for the answer. And
Right.
where education is amazing, you have the answer for you. You just
Hmm.
have to get good at listening to it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so amazing. Like,
Yeah.
and can I just like pause for just a second?
Yes.
The fact that I met you that day and this is a conversation that we're having, like it's not by chance.
Right.
But it always blows my mind.
Hmm.
Like because you're on that same journey and I did an interview with a guy in Italy that I was not planning on doing. I knew one person in Italy from
Hmm.
kindergarten and I ended up interviewing him in Italy by happenstance. I
Hmm.
was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try to do this thing. And then the conversation we had, his name is Marcus Eaton, was literally surrounding his journey and his emotional journey that I literally teach people the transformation and how to have that. And you're the
Yeah.
same thing. It's like, I love it. I just love it. It's just more and more evidence that I like my calling is my calling, right? But that the people are out
Hmm.
there that have these stories to tell and these experiences to share so other
Yeah.
people can experience this joy too.
Exactly. Yeah, and that day was so it's I told my boss the other day that it's so interesting because I wake up every day curious to go to work because the amount of people I'm meeting are just I wake up excited because I don't know who I'm going to meet that day. And you were one of those that I told him about and he's just like that doesn't surprise me. That's who you are. And I don't, it was really refreshing to meet you.
And what was going on, just out of curiosity, I love this part of the journey. My day, I actually did not plan on stopping in that city. So I was
Uh-huh.
driving through from Boise to Pocatello. Twin Falls is halfway. And it was like
Mm-hmm.
8:30 at night the night before. And I was driving and I thought, I'm kind of tired and I really don't have to drive the whole way. There's no difference if I stay at a hotel here, if I stay at a hotel in Pocatello. So I'm just gonna stay in Twin Falls. And so I just randomly decided to get off the freeway, listen to myself, decided to get off the freeway, and I stayed the night there. And then I woke
Okay.
up in the morning and I had been carrying these paychecks with me. I took them from my house in Boise and I needed a deposit. And there happened to be a Zions Bank right out front of the store that you were working at. And I
Mm-hmm.
saw it when I come in and I thought, oh, I really could just deposit these, like whatever, like take pictures and deposit, right? And I'm like, no, I'll just go through the drive-through and I'll just go drive-through and deposit. And so I did. And then as I came out the drive-through, I see the Trader Joe's and I was like, oh, I'm going to go get some healthy food for breakfast. This is great because
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to my body about what food my body wanted. I'm going to go get some healthy food. And so that's how I landed where you were at. Like
Yeah.
just by listening, right? And it's not by accident, but it
No.
is by listening that then
Mm-hmm.
we end up in the places that we're meant to end up and having experiences that we're actually meant to have. And
Right.
had I forced myself and not listened and dismissed myself, I would have driven all the way through to Pocatello. I would have been tired, probably a little cranky, right?
Mm-hmm.
And missed out on the opportunity.
Right. And I think
What
it worked. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, go ahead. I was going to say what was happening for you that day. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, that day was the start of a new shift in my work schedule where I'd been working primarily nights, and then I got switched over to doing, 3 morning shifts and 2 closing shifts. So that was like a transition where like I wasn't supposed to technically be there either. My schedule had just gotten changed so that my hours were different. And I think that what works so great with meeting each other was that we were both open to the other one. Which I think carries a lot of weight because, like you said, there's a lot of people that just aren't open to the magic of what could be happening around them all the time. And just the conversation, Hawaii always leads me to really cool people. Anytime they're like, oh, I live on the islands, it's like a very nice connection point for me because I think that once you live there or you experience the depth of what happens at the islands, when you meet someone who also knows that, it's kind of like a fast track of knowing who that person is because you can relate without having to share everything that you've experienced because you just know that you both know. And I feel like that's kind of what happened there. And then we brought up our books, and then it was just like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
then there was a
you,
person, and you had to go, and it was just, yeah.
I know. And then I've got your paper here. And then you wrote down, like, we need to
Yes.
exchange information. And you,
Yeah.
you instigated that, which was amazing. And I think I need to do that even more often with people. Um,
Yes.
but it's like, yeah, let's follow along on the journeys. And then
Mm-hmm.
after, I think it was probably a week late. I got back home here and I was like, I should have her on my podcast. I'm
Yeah.
like, because I'm just stepping into being open and finding the people to share their stories. Because I've
Yeah.
shared my story up till now, but
Mm-hmm.
finding the people that have these stories to share is part of my life's work. I mean, for right
Yeah.
now, that's part of my calling. So
Yeah.
that's so amazing. Um, so tell me a little bit then about your book. Tell me where you
Okay.
are now, I guess, like after your
Yeah.
travels.
Okay.
And you know what? And before I get to your book, I have a question for you.
Okay.
When you finished your journey,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what has been the hardest part about continuing to stay open and listening to yourself?
Well, leading all of those to the same place that you just asked, I came back from all of my traveling with, I went rock climbing locally here. I had a one-way ticket to Thailand. I met someone when I was climbing, and everything in me was like, oh, I really need to know him. And so I canceled my one-way ticket to Thailand. 5 years later, did the whole playhouse, gave, like settled in when I wasn't necessarily, I mean, I was buying one-way tickets. I was living my life. I was traveling and adventuring and writing and but I something in me just said like, hey, you know, now I advise all my young friends that if you meet a boy, go on the trip, and if he's the real deal, he'll be there when you come back. Because I spent 5 years playing house with someone that I think maybe at one point loved me, but um, that is where I really got a chance to see what happens when I override my intuition. And it became detrimental to my health and my spiritual psyche. I was hospitalized because my heart blew up and I bled out in a bathroom
Oh
for like
gosh.
5 hours. And all the emergency doctor could say was it was heartbreak syndrome. And that was in 2020. And that is something I will highly advise to anyone, that we are very powerful and our body listens, and it goes both ways. You're powerful in calling in your highest good, and despair literally will shut your body down. And I went through a time period of 10 months where I weighed 107 pounds. I had no appetite. I bled out. I had to have emergency surgery after. And that's coming up on Halloween, is actually when that happened. And then in November, I had to have an emergency surgery. So, and a lot of that was overriding my heart and my gut. I knew that things were not okay. And when I would address them, I would get told I'm too sensitive, or it's just like, a whole slew of things that someone will tell you when you're on to them and they don't want you to trust that you know what you know. And so I overrode what I knew. And in the end, everything that I had a hit that I knew was like, oh, that doesn't feel good. All of it was true, which I lost connection to myself for those years. And I just took the last few years kind of walking myself back to myself, because and that's when I took a year and a half off to write my book. I kind of closed the world off. I stayed in my own safe space because I didn't really know who I was anymore. And I thought I saved my money, so I bought myself time. I had the opportunity to facilitate my own healing in a way that I didn't need to be rushed by like asking to go to the bathroom at a 9 to 5. And it gave me an opportunity to write like 187 pages of pure like emotion. And that's the other side of my book that I'm trying to make peace with, is that I need to remember that writing this, even though it's like it is extremely raw, and but it's human. And that's what I think a lot of us have stepped away from, is reminding ourselves that the curated Instagram account of the sparkly happy person is not reality. And so with my Instagram and my, like, I've shared over half of my book on my Instagram. My Instagram is like my diary. One of my friends described that to me, and they're like, "Yeah, I just know that whatever is happening in Maddie's life is gonna, like, it's her living diary." And some people hate that about me, and some people are inspired by it. And honestly, I'm doing it for myself. So if they want to applaud or cut me down, like, it doesn't really touch me, because it's a living story of what I have experienced. So I think that it can become detrimental if you let your intuition get um discredited by other people. And I lived that and made it through it, thank goodness. But it was it wasn't pretty and it was scary. And I think I'm still learning how to lower my walls because they're quite high. But I'm still the open, vulnerable self, but like that essence of me now is very protected. And my little brother described it beautifully to me the other day. He said it's like the hood of a car, that the engine is protected by multiple facets, and you don't take the cover of the engine off for anyone but yourself. You can open the hood and people can, see that you have a heart, you have an engine. He's like, but you don't ever take the cover off for anyone. And I that resonated with me because I think you have to step into the I don't I don't want to say dark, but it is, because everything is a balance of life, like light and dark, and you have to step far enough in to that void in order to understand the importance of protecting yourself. And I think we're fed these stories of fairy tale love where your person will keep you safe and is on your team, and sometimes you give yourself to the wrong person. Um and sometimes it's your greatest like lesson in life to walk through to the other side. And then I always talk about how now I am running buckets of water back into the fire for all of my friends that are still there. And it is really powerful because we need more people with buckets running back, because I almost didn't make it out. And I know that I'm not the only one. So yeah, it
Right.
was a big deal.
I appreciate you, number one, for sharing that and being vulnerable to share that, because
Yeah.
it can feel I'll share something with you here in a minute that I haven't shared yet, but it can feel so like embarrassing is probably the
Yeah.
best word. Like, I look at me, how powerful I was, and I could travel the world, and I could survive, not just survive, but thrive through the experience. And then you find yourself in this space where you're like, but how did I not get myself out of it in 5 years? Like, how did I not listen? And how did I become so disconnected?
Right.
And it's interesting that you talk about like guarding your heart and finding your safe space to write. I'm doing the exact same thing
Mm-hmm.
but I was married, complete opposite, right? I didn't go explore life when I was young. I got married when I was 18, the month I graduated high school. And so
Mm-hmm.
I lived for 26 years, never knowing how to listen to myself and always repressing
Yeah.
what I actually felt, which caused what was depression and weight gain and all those pieces. And
Mm-hmm.
so breaking free of that in Italy, and over the last year and a half, which is an experience that I share in my book, breaking free of that and learning to trust myself and love myself and provide safety for me. It is
Mm-hmm.
very true that we don't find safety in the other person. We do have to provide that for us.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the thing that I've learned now is where you were, and I was too, like optimistic, because I've also just recently been through the heartbreak piece again.
Mm-hmm.
And you go in and we're so open and loving and willing that we're so optimistic. But I think
Mm-hmm.
the piece that's missed, that makes us want to like shut down and guard our heart, because I'm like, oh yeah, walls straight up. Like, I don't think I want to do this anymore, right?
Yeah.
Is the discernment piece.
Yeah.
And as long as you have the discernment piece in there, then we can open up so that we don't have to feel guarded for the rest of our time. Because there's another wonderful human being out there who's going to love you. And I'm saying this
Mm-hmm.
to you as much as I'm saying it to myself, that's going
Mm-hmm.
to love you the way that you deserve to be loved, and you get to love them the way they deserve to be loved.
Mm-hmm.
But we're now not going in just with optimism, blind optimism.
Right.
Now it's discerning optimism. So you
Mm-hmm.
still remain the person that you are, because you're such a beautiful, wonderful soul.
Mm-hmm.
And you have so much like love and light and happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And not everyone gets access to that.
Yeah.
And that's the differentiating factor, I think, now. And even when you talk about the other thing I heard you say was the people that are online that have something to say about your journey that you're sharing on your Instagram and how that's your journal. I have received the same thing, and I received DMs from people and panic from people, and I can't believe you're doing this, and why are you moving to Hawaii? And I receive all the things. And what's so fun is to look at that from the perspective of, wow, now I see where they're uncomfortable.
Exactly.
Because it has nothing to do with me. Life is a mirror. And someone else's experience, if we feel uncomfortable, is just mirroring, right? Like for us, where we're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so for them, that just shows, okay, here's your level of where you're starting for where you can have growth too, if they really wanted to. That's their baseline for growth. So we keep sharing, right? All the vulnerability and all the things. And I mean, same thing in relationship. And it's a lot trickier than I was ever hoping it to be. I will say too, like, you found the love of your life. And I'm like, oh, just kidding. I found another unhealed person who may or may not want to heal. And that can't be in here because two healed people make an amazing, couple.
Yes.
But you can't fix for the other person what they're not willing to look at and what they're not willing to heal in themselves. It's so this is like a call to action for everybody. Like, there's a reason why you do personal development work and this work on yourself, and you get to yourself. You want to look at the things that are not aligned in you, those feelings that you are having. It's just a misalignment, and we just sometimes let the love and the needing to be loved override. I don't feel aligned, but man, it feels really good in these moments to feel loved and to have those moments of safety, but it's not what we're actually looking for, like what we need, I guess.
Yeah.
It's an amazing part of your story. It's still
and it took me to, it gave me the opportunity to have more depth as a person that I didn't have before him. And I used to go through things where people would say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I would argue them to the death because I'm like, no, it actually made me less. Yes. I became less of a human because of this experience. And just because I walked out of the fire on fire and didn't die, you're telling me I'm strong, but I'm telling you I have scars now that won't ever go away. And I think that there's a level of emotional intelligence that some people lack, where you don't have to go through hard things to prove anything about who you are as a person, that you can actually obtain similar things through ease and grace and love. You don't have to always be in the fire in order to like have a badge of armor or aren't like, you don't have to do it that way. And it
doesn't have to be hard.
No. And I think that's where I'm at now with everything, is just trying to, I have a really big radar now that I can notice in someone's face when they are where I used to be. And I've taken it upon myself to take that very seriously and let them know that I can see them. Because I don't know about you, but when I was in my hardest times, I felt no one could see me. I felt I felt invisible. I'm smiling, I'm working 3 jobs, and they're calling me ambitious, but I'm really trying to stay out of my house that I'm still living in with my ex for 10 months. And I've dropped 20 pounds, and now they're calling me the most beautiful I've ever been, but I'm starving. And there was a lot of, I'm glad that my mind was strong enough to not feed off of the outside voices that were telling me that was beauty and that was strength, because that could have taken me down a really ugly path of self-destruction in trying to obtain. I was literally heartbroken. I had no appetite. That's why I lost weight. It's taken me 5 years to gain 15 pounds. It's just a whole, we have an opportunity now. I feel like that going through what we've experienced, we have tools that we can offer others that I honestly wish that someone would have handed me and said like, "Hey, I know you're crying and it's 2 a.m. and you're staring at the wall. Let's go for a drive and listen to your favorite music." You know, like I do that now because it matters, and I had to do it for myself for a really long time, and um I'm capable now of giving what I didn't have, and that's a really good place to be in, considering 5 years ago I was crying in a bathtub every night, you know. And
Yeah.
um but all of it has its place in making my life what it is, and I have fought really hard to get back to myself. And so, like we talked about, my walls are there with purpose, not out of keeping out, but out of what keeping in, what took so long for me to find again. And I've learned that, like you said, the discernment of there are people who deserve to know what's inside here, and there are people who deserve to know the sparkly shirt I'm wearing. You know,
Yeah.
like there's different
Different levels of
levels.
access.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's different levels of access. I love that you said that too. The from the outside looking in, and this is where judging people just doesn't work because you
No.
have no idea. So, I mean, from the outside looking in, for me, I was making so much money and successful and mayor of my town and had the, the house and like investment properties, and like it looked like everything was great. And I would smile from the outside looking in, I would smile, but I go back and look at pictures of myself and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I see it now. I
Yeah.
see that I look 10 years younger now than I looked 5 or 10 years ago when I was so unhappy and living in my husband's addiction to, well, go into that, but, living in a space that was not healthy. The way
Yeah.
that I was living my life, it's really not about what somebody else is doing. It's about how I was choosing to act, react, and also what I was allowing for myself. And I just didn't know what I was living in and how I was behaving that was not healthy for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't get divorced because of someone else's behavior. I got divorced because I was unhealthy. And this
Mm-hmm.
was not an environment for me to heal in. And
Mm-hmm.
that's so important that we keep that in mind. And moving forward, that we need to maintain a partner in a healthy environment, that you have that space to heal in, because inevitably there's more challenges in life, right? There's more challenges, but I kind of went around in a circle. But I mean, from the outside looking in, it looks like you have everything. It looks like you're great. It looks like you've lost weight. It looks like, it looks like all of those beautiful, wonderful things that the world is saying are markers for success or markers for happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And those aren't the markers for happiness. And I think what we're talking about now in this journey to your joy is the joy that you found isn't lying in any of those things. It's
Right.
lying inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
And you discovered that and you came back to it.
Yeah, and I think that a good marker for realizing when you're not living in your truth is like I stopped dancing, I stopped writing, I
Yeah.
stopped listening to my favorite music. I There are indications when you know that you're not honoring yourself. But it's not something we're ever taught to acknowledge and fight for. It's something that we, especially as women, we tend to compromise a lot of ourselves for our partner, and there's nothing we really can't do. So if it's not as bad as what we've experienced in the past, we give it a pass because we've experienced worse. And the bottom line is that we all deserve to live in our desires, and they're holy, and nobody has the right to take those from us. And it's one thing to hand them over to someone, but it's another to have them taken from you. And you have to learn to care enough about yourself to not put yourself in environments that take the essence of who you are away from you.
And there's
Yeah.
another thing you said earlier that you just kind of reiterated, which is it doesn't have to be hard. It's
Yeah.
not supposed to be hard. When you one-way ticketed yourself for 5 years
Mm-hmm.
around the world,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't hard, right?
No,
It
it was
wasn't, and
easy.
by all accounts, it should have been stressful, complicated. What the world says
Mm-hmm.
is, maybe where the money comes from, or all the things that you experienced that it had to be harder, that was a hard task that you did that. But it's not. When you're living in alignment with yourself, it doesn't get to be hard. It gets to be joyful.
Yes.
And so really the call to action for anyone who's listening, I think for us to continue to do is, am I in alignment with me? Does this feel right? Or do I have resistance? Is there any
Mm-hmm.
resistance to what I'm choosing to do, or what someone's doing to me, or any of those angles? And if that's
Yes.
true, it's something that has to be looked at. And what we tend to do is we don't look at it. We maybe have that moment of clarity. We're like, hey, something's not right. And then we get busy.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get onto our job. We get onto watching TV. We get onto scrolling. We get onto the distractions of life. And
Mm-hmm.
those distractions, they almost mute the feeling
Mm-hmm.
that we just had of not being aligned. And then it has to come up again and show us again. And then we mute it again. And then it comes up again and we mute it again. And when we do that, it makes us sick, which is exactly what you experienced as well. I started doing it when I moved to Hawaii. And I've
Mm-hmm.
gained 8 pounds moving here. I don't have the problem. I've got the opposite, right? I'm not losing, I'm gaining. And it's like, okay, wait a minute. There's something I'm not in alignment with, because
Mm-hmm.
my body is telling me, stop it, right? Like, get yourself aligned. Something's not right. And so there's
Yes.
more work to be done. But listening to that faster, we're not removing the fact that it's going to come, that it's going to happen. We're just saying, hey, when it does happen, listen to it, journal
Yes.
it, write it down, pay attention, so that it doesn't go from, as my coach, Rebecca Silence, says, from a whisper level to a shouting level to a screaming level. And your
Mm-hmm.
heartbreak and your having to have surgery, like that was the screaming level of your body saying, stop living in what you're living in. It's not okay. It's
Yeah.
going to tell you to get out of it, tell you to be done. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, how you're saying too, you can see it in people's faces. I could see, I was in a room, a group of people having a conversation, and I could tell two of them. I'm like, they don't look right. They don't look okay. And sure
Mm-hmm.
enough, one husband had passed away a couple years prior, and the other one was in an abusive situation. And you
Mm-hmm.
can see it like in your skin. You can
Yeah.
see it. And you may not say it, but you can't hide from it, because your body keeps the score. Your body will show the
Yes.
world and show you what's actually happening. It's a good
Yeah, and
indicator.
that's like I told you, I take it very seriously now with my friends and people that I know, to just be aware of their existence, because it could save someone. And I live in a community here where, I mean, we have this bridge here, and mental health is not good here, and it hasn't been my whole life. And like my senior project, I brought Dave Peltzer, who wrote A Child Called It, to my school to talk, trying to help all my friends. And unfortunately, most of them are gone at their own hand. And I take I take it very seriously to acknowledge people in their pain and their joy, but we tend to sweep people's pain under the rug. And most people just need 5 seconds of your time and a hug. It's not, you don't have to have a degree. You don't have to, like, it's just being a good human. And somewhere along the line, we've kind of gotten so far away from it that it's normal to have the amount of loss we have every year. And it's not normal.
No.
And I think that given the situations that I've lived through and experiences that I've had in multifaceted ways, it just, we just need to pay attention. And paying attention gets me in trouble sometimes. Sometimes it almost gets me fired from a job. Sometimes people get really mad at me. I will never turn myself away from someone who is blatantly in pain. And I just have dealt with that again recently in a job situation, and I have to give a big old spiel on how I will not, like, you can fire me if you have to, but when someone is not okay in front of me, I'm not going to act like they're fine. And I I don't know. I think that there's a lot of room for improvement in humanity when it comes to holding people when they're not okay. And it's not everyone will feel the call to be that person that shows up, but those of
Yeah.
us that are getting louder, I think, and
Yes.
finding more platforms and spaces to lend a hand. And I just think that it's important because the younger generation is a very sad generation, and we have everything more than we've ever had, and it's disconnected us so much that we need a community again, and we need to sit around a bonfire, and we need it to be outside and shutting our phones off a little more. And I don't know what the antidote for depression is. I've been searching for it for a long time for my friends and myself when I was there. And I think that presence is probably the biggest thing that I was searching for when I wasn't doing well. I just needed someone to be very intentional with their time with me and to not try to fix or take anything away, but just to like
Witness.
facilitate a space. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think there's a key piece, my friend, and I don't know who said this, but there's a, grief and pain like needs a witness.
Mm-hmm.
And when we keep it inside of us, it's almost like that lets you like crack the door open a little bit to just
Yeah.
allow it to start coming out. But as
Mm-hmm.
long as we keep it shut in, we are repressing that, and it's not allowed to come out of us, to seep out of us. We
Right.
keep it locked so tight, which is
Mm-hmm.
what's causing the depression. I was on antidepressants since I was 20.
Yeah.
I mean, I got married, my parents got divorced, and then I had a kid when I was 20. And all at the same time, I was ready to drown myself in the bathtub. And I
Mm-hmm.
was wise enough to go, that's not really a good thought. That's not
Mm-hmm.
really a great idea. And I recognized it. At the same time, I had another friend who had a baby who was having similar issues. And I said to her, you need to go to the doctor. You're depressed. And I needed to
Mm-hmm.
go to the doctor. I was depressed. Well, I ended up on antidepressants. What I've learned though, and that was 25 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
what I've learned now is I repressed so many emotions for so many years. I mean, since, we have childhood emotions that we've repressed. And as
Yes.
I've done that, keeping that all trapped in my body is what caused me to be depressed. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't, I thought it was clinical. I'm like, oh, my whole family had it. No, we had generational trauma that we were all responding to, and we were all responding in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
That cracked wide open through my experience I've had in the last 2 years, where I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I wasn't depressed, but I was sad. I was grieving. I was not allowing myself to feel that way. And holding that in was causing my body and my brain to kind of shut down and protect itself in such a way that it was
Yes.
depression.
Mm-hmm.
And we just don't have that safe space to feel the way that we feel. And what you're explaining to me is you provide a safe space for someone else to actually feel their emotions and for you to witness their emotions, which is
Mm-hmm.
where the healing comes in. That's where
Yeah.
we really start to heal, is in that witness and in that ability to start to share.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can start to allow those things to come back out of us. We just have a world that's just we're just repressed, and it's generational. It
Well,
just
and that was the
continues.
beauty also of traveling by myself was, if you travel with a friend, you want to go to the beach and they want to stay in bed. And so you compromise. And I learned in that extended time of traveling that once again, like my desires are holy. And if I want to go to the beach all day and eat an ice cream cone, that's what I'm going
Yeah,
to do. And
yeah,
it helped facilitate a space inside of me that because I was always the good girl that did what I was told and had straight A's and was on the dean's list in college and was very good at sports. And I am very good at morphing into who I need to be for people. And when I turned 18, I got my first tattoo. I went to college for 2 years, got a concussion, withdrew from college, traumatized my dad by not finishing school. Like all of these things that I was acting these parts for all these people because I love them and I still love them. But I also love myself enough now to say, I'm not less of a person because an accident happened that took me out of college. I'm still smart. I am still worthy of being, like he was very angry with me. And then that was when I moved to Hawaii to recover from my concussion. She just happened to be a cranial sacral healer also who helped me remember myself. And knowing Sybil was very pivotal for me. She protected me. She gave me that soft space that I hadn't had up until knowing her. And she basically said, that all stops there. Mattie is with me and you're not welcome. And she gave me time and then gave me courage to continue going. And it led me, everything was random. I worked at a pizza place and heard about the nanny job in Spain, messaged them on Facebook, and a week later I bought my ticket. I didn't know what I was going to do 11 days in Ireland prior, but I was like, I'll go to Ireland first, then I'll go to Estepona, and then I'm going to go to southern France. And I rode a bus for 29 hours from southern Spain to southern France. Don't think I won't say I won't ever do it again, but it was really hard. And but I saw the entire countryside and coastline of Spain, and I landed in Nice, France, which was the most beautiful. It was incredible, and everything was just, it was like little breadcrumbs I was being left, and I just kept picking them up, and then they kept leading me to the next one. And I was so protected in that time too, because there were buses. That bus I got off of, that same bus line had 4 buses get bombed in that day I got on the bus. And I watched it all happen in the Burger King line waiting for my chicken nuggets. And then I'm like, well, I'm not going to tell my mom about that till I get home. And mind you, I had no phone. I had an iPod that I could only connect to Wi-Fi and send her a message on Facebook and say, hey, I'm alive. I'm in France now. And she went through so much, but I was like, what do you expect, Mom? This is who you raised. And I used to tell her when she would stress out, I would say, do you trust the way you raised me? And then she would say, yes. And I would say, okay, then trust that I am okay. And I'm not going to make a bad decision. And I mean, I know it was hard for her because there were times where I was like, okay, Mads, how are we getting out of this one? But I just kept following what felt true. And I didn't, there was a few instances in Spain where my water was drugged and I had a bad experience. And, and then I came home and all these younger girls, I was like, you need to go travel before you go to college. And then they actually listened to me and did. And the day before they would fly out, I would take each of them to lunch and I would say, hey, just so you know, I'm extremely excited for you, but I need you to know that bad things can happen to you no matter how diligent you're being, no matter how good you are. And I was like, I just need you to watch your back more than I've let on up until this point, because I thought that if I did everything right, I would be saved from all of the bad. But I mean, I was drinking water. A woman drugged my water. It was, you never know. You never know. But that was one experience out of 5 years. Like, I've had worse things happen to me in my hometown than I have on the other side of the world.
I think
And
you, oh, Go
Go
ahead. I was
ahead.
going to say, well, you've said a couple really important things before we keep going, before I forget, because my, 45-year-old brain can remember so far back. You said a couple things. I think the first, what you just said is, even though we're going to go experience and it's going to be good, we still experience the bad, but you were able to move through it in a different way.
Yeah.
Right. You're able to face it and move through it and not be afraid of it, but just know that sometimes we do have that experience because you can survive it and you can still thrive through it. And I think that's the difference. We move out of just being in survival, which is what you were in, and you went out into the world and you didn't just survive 5 years traveling, you thrived through it, and you were able to move through and conquer all of the situations that you had come in front of you. So I think that's really important to note. I think the other thing is, you talked about when you were back in Hawaii and had this space, and you were talking about how she created a space for you. So I just want to speak to this for a minute because it's really important for our listeners to understand. I think for even you to be able to acknowledge for you is the person that you were. When we change who we are, we change how we behave. We do this in order to receive love and acceptance from other people. And it's generally our family. And then that starts to change our behavior, and we suppress parts of us. And so it's, we see parts of us, but those are the parts that other people find acceptable. And then we suppress the parts that we believe aren't acceptable. They're all still the parts in us. And then that's why we're fragmented. That's why we're not aligned, because there's part of us that's suppressed. And then all of a sudden you come out of the gate. This lady in Hawaii provided a safe environment for you to be who you were, right? To actually discover and live into and maybe stop suppressing and start to discover the depth of you that before you just didn't have the safe space to do. And I know I've done this to my kids. We all do it, by the way. This is just the joy of being a parent, is the way that we interact with our kids. And I've had this conversation with my kids. The way that I acted as a parent, and I call myself a great parent. My kids are like, yeah, you're a great parent. I love the heck out of my kids, but it still didn't matter. There's still things that I would do that would have them suppressing parts of themselves that now in their low 20s are just starting to come to light because they now have that safe space and environment for them to be able to do that. And our relationship, because of what I've learned, has now at least changed so that they can feel comfortable being who they are, and all the parts of them, I think, is what's so important. And so, bless that lady, but I want to give you the power that you really made choice. You got yourself there. You did that. She was a landing pad for you. And she gave you an experience of safety that you didn't have growing up, that allowed you to develop those parts of you that you had not been hearing or listening to, that little girl, Mattie, didn't get to experience because she was too busy trying to please. Now you have the safe space. You get to develop those parts of yourself. But you did do that.
Yeah. And I was going to say that. Yeah, that it was, I did purchase the one-way ticket, and I did, I acted on what I knew I needed, and she was just the one with the open door that said, you're welcome here. And I think that that's pretty much sums up what I did in all my traveling, was listening to those intuitions that I would get of, it's time for you to move now, or you're going to stay here another night. And it gave me, traveling the way that I did gave me enough space to tap into myself without anyone knowing previous background on me, without anyone knowing my parents and my last name, without, both my parents, my mom is a RN nurse and my father's a veterinarian, and they're very well known. And upholding a family name when you're in Bali in the middle of the jungle with a butterfly that's the size of a plate and a green snake with blue eyes. They don't care who I am. And Bali was incredible for me because I got there really late at night and there were no locks on the doors, no safes, and like the doors didn't even close. They were swinging doors. And I wish that the United States had a bit more culture in terms of tradition, because they had a huge note left for you that just said nobody will steal anything from you because we believe in karma. And it was something that I had never experienced in my life, that an entire culture had the belief that if they did something wrong to someone, karma was more of a punishment than anything a human could do to them. And it expanded me further. And I picked up, and they pray to the earth every day at 3 o'clock, and they give offerings of flowers and money. And if you go into situations with curiosity and openness, you have an opportunity to actually learn something instead of thinking that you know everything. And Bali was so incredible for my soul to have. My whole life fell apart when I came home from Bali, because Bali was the tipping point for me that said you can't keep living in this lie that you're trying to facilitate. And I lost my house, I lost my boyfriend, I lost two of my animals who stayed with him. I quit my job. Anything that was hindering me didn't have space to exist anymore. And it was really hard, but I think it would have been harder long term if I would have pushed through and told myself I had to stay in that environment for the sake of an image or my boyfriend or anyone other than myself. And I spent 5 days in Bali. It was my 27th birthday present to myself, my golden birthday. I spent so much money for such a smart amount of time. And it was completely worth it. I would do it again. I wish I would have stayed in Bali longer, just to explore, but I think I got what I needed at that time. And, it's no small feat flying across the entire world by yourself,
Yeah.
especially when you know that, like, your relationship is on the rocks, you're not happy in your job, you're living in Idaho again. I'd been on an island for 5 years by the ocean. I never saw snow. I'm like, my whole life, in the travel, I got so sick flying into Bali from Taiwan. I threw up twice. I was purging a lot before I got there. And then it was like everything just got. I went to a Sally Mustang yoga retreat, and she was another landing pad for me that just facilitated a soft space to. And she even warned us all. She's like, you may leave here and your whole life will fall apart. And she wasn't wrong. But in the most beautiful way.
I was going to say, like, I would love to reframe that though, too, because really you
Yeah.
came back to yourself.
Exactly.
You didn't fall apart. You fixed what was misaligned. Like, you identified the misalignment. We feel like that's falling apart. Like, I could have easily said after 26 years of marriage and I was never going to get divorced, and all the things that things fell apart. But really what looks like falling apart and what we describe as it is really, we were misaligned. This mess was misaligned, and we are just not subscribing to that anymore. And we now are realigning ourselves. And I think the falling apart feeling that we get is, we know how to survive survival. Like, we can survive, right? We're meant to do that, but that's the hard. That's the, like, we always have to live in that hard stuff. And that's the mess that you were in, was the hard, and the mess I was in was the hard. And when we align ourselves, it feels scary because we are not sure what alignment feels like as often as what survival feels like.
Right.
And I think because you had already had that alignment experience, coming back to being aligned, I think that next time you were more able to identify it. Probably better. Is that right? Okay. I'm assuming, but it was easier for you to be like, yeah, okay, Like, you're right,
Mhm.
this is not the life that I wanted, and now I'm going to move myself out of it. And so
Mhm.
that's the learning. But there was two key pieces that you said. There was that, and the other key piece is you removed yourself from your environment and went somewhere else. So you had a change. Not that people um, have to travel, but even if you like go to the mountains and go camping, or you go on a road trip, you just give yourself some space to hear yourself, and
Mhm.
to have an interrupter, right? A pattern interrupter. That's what that was, is a pattern interrupter. I
Mhm.
also would wonder, you throwing up on the way there, and maybe it was food poisoning or not. I kind of wonder if your body was like, I'm leaving toxic, and
Mhm.
I'm like almost purging the toxic. And I bet your nervous system was freaking out that you were going to this, like, what was going to be a safe space, but you didn't know that you could really survive it yet, because coming out of survival it feels so scary,
Yeah.
right? And you're going to a safe space, but your body doesn't know it's safe there yet.
Mhm.
And so you have to like give yourself some grace and
Yeah.
understanding, like your body. That happened to me when I came to Hawaii, and I'm like, I I didn't know what just safe space, my own condo, my own home, just by myself, how safe and what safety felt like. And
Yeah.
so you have a reaction to that, or sometimes we try to create drama to reenact what we're used to living in.
Mhm.
That's the thing too. I mean, we could go all day long talking about this,
Yeah.
but I bet you anything that purging was purposeful. Your body's like, we are getting rid of the toxic.
Well, and then I just so happened to sit next to a woman who was really well versed in Chinese medicine, who had like an attuner and like sat with me and gave me a rock. And, so from Taiwan to Bali, I
Yeah.
was next. It was all very on purpose. And then it led to me meeting some of the most incredible women I've ever met in my life that are still my friends. It led to me meeting Larkin, who is a girl that I was on the retreat with, who had just had an automobile accident and got a whole bunch of money in return for her car. And she was traveling, and she had made an intention coming to Bali that she was gifting someone a lump sum of money. And I got home and she's like, hey, go check your Venmo or PayPal, and I know you're going to try to return this to me, but I think the only thing stopping you from writing your book is money. So here's the money. Go write your book. People need to hear what you're saying. And literally all of these, and that was happening to me when I was living in an environment where I'd stopped writing. And I went to Bali and I had told her, like, I have this thought and I have all of this experience. And she just like gifted me a substantial amount of money. And I just messaged her a couple nights ago and told her that it's almost ready. And all she had to say, which was so beautiful, was, thank you for not giving up on this. And like that meant so much because like she believed in it before it was even there. And then to just have her, and I've gone through so many hurdles trying to get this book out, of like computers dying and the mouse on the computer dying 7 times and buying 7 different mice for my computer and the whole thing shutting down and thinking I lost the whole book. And so for her to say just like thank you for not giving up on it's been a really magical life that I've had. And I'm only 32, and I can't wait to see what the next 32 years are like. I'm finally getting back to a center point. Like I leave on the 3rd to go to Nashville for a week, and I'm getting myself back in the routine of movement. I've been settled and stagnant back at home for a few years now, and it feels good to feel brave enough, which seems crazy for me to hear myself say that because I never felt like I had to be brave prior to go travel, but I got soft. And I am excited to challenge myself again and have that sense of freedom that only travel has ever been able to give me. And it's that's why I strongly believe that every woman needs to take a solo trip. And every woman I talk to in this town is like, oh, I can't. I have to take my husband. And I'm like, no, you don't. And
Yeah.
it's nothing bad about your husband, but especially where I live, everyone got married right out of high school. People my age have 4 children right now. I have 0. I've lived a completely different life. And there are times where I'm craving what they have and what they found. And there's other times where I'm like, hey, I can offer you this. And I think you need to go on a road trip by yourself. You don't even have to leave the country. But the fear that has captured so many women into thinking that they can't do it without a man or by themselves, it makes me a little concerned, because we are a lot more capable than we think that we are. And it's just a matter of believing in ourselves. And we give a lot of our responsibility to men, because they do provide in ways that let us not have to provide. That was the biggest thing for me after my last relationship was, the normal, like learning to sleep by myself again, or learning to come home to an empty house, or learning, just like little tiny things, like I can't get this jar open, or I
Yes.
can't reach this in the top of the shelf, or just like little things even that were personal between the two of us, where it's like a ghost. It's almost like you're living with a ghost for a while, of the person that you used to be with and the person you used to be yourself. And I think a lot of, at least when I came home, a lot of the girls I went to high school with said, I vicariously lived through you the whole time. I was waiting for your post every day. And they have a shopping cart full of kids in Walmart, and they have everything that some people crave in life, which is a family and stability. And they were saying they wanted, like, my life was, I made no plans. Like, there was no rhyme or reason for anything I did other than I followed what felt good. And I just think that I learned the balance coming home and staying put for a minute after 5 years or so of traveling on a whim and having no responsibility. And it made a lot of people mad. Um, my dad told me that I didn't deserve to live like I was retired when I was 19 and moved to Hawaii. And
Oh,
I
that's
I
funny.
personally just thought that he was mad I did it faster than he did, but
I was going to
it
say,
just,
like, if you mirror that, that just means
yeah,
he wishes that he got to do that and he doesn't. So his anger really is directed at himself. But
yeah. But it's wild because his life isn't like, I'm only the way I am because I have 2 adventurous parents who are fearless. And like, my dad's darting rhinos out of a helicopter in Africa, and my mom is picking huckleberries in Wyoming with grizzly bears, and that's just a normal Tuesday. And then they wonder why both my brother and
I'm
I
not
are
scared.
very, yeah, we're just
Oh,
very, they were the perfect storm to make 2 really interesting, good humans that we just know what we know. And I learned the hard way of overriding what I knew. And now I'm back on my, like you said, the journey to my joy of, I know what I know, what I know, and I'm never going to question that ever again, because the cost of questioning it is my life. And you only have to touch that once to learn, at least I personally do. I don't need to learn that lesson again. And so that's where I'm really happy with the book that I'm about to release and the
what is
travel
the name of
plans
your
I
book?
have. It's called
That's
Turbulent.
Turbulent, and they can find it on
Turbulent.
Amazon.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
and
and we will.
I'm hoping to have it out soon. It's in the last final touches, but it's 187 pages of poetry mixed of basically everything we talked about. There's no rhyme or reason to any of it. It's just accumulated thoughts and life, and that's what makes it very vulnerable. And I feel like I'm handing my soul to the world, but I know that it'll be held where it's supposed to. So
I think that's
that's where
so
I'm
beautiful.
finally at.
So beautiful. Thank you for sharing your story. We will link, by the time this
Yes.
episode airs, you should be launched, and we will link
Yes.
so people can purchase your book in the show notes.
Thank
And
you.
I'm so grateful to have met you and that we both were open. Very true. We were
Yes.
both very open that day and able to meet each other and have this come
Yeah.
to fruition. It's absolutely perfect. And you've taught me a lot as well and
Mhm.
reiterated, I think, which is such a blessing for me,
Yeah.
reiterated some things that I've been experiencing in the being alone
Mhm.
and how to do that and what that's like. And navigating that has been kind of heartbreaking for me. And
Mhm.
so I just appreciate the things that you've shared that are teaching me part of my next part of my journey as well. So
Yes.
I know it's going to bless the listeners, whoever's listening, and whatever they needed to hear, they're going to get from what we talked about today. And I'm very grateful for you. So thank you
Likewise.
for sharing your journey to joy.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Welcome. So wonderful. All right, you guys, everybody, make sure you get book Turbulent. You can find it on Amazon. It'll be awesome. Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Mattie.
Thank you.